Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I'm Darshan Usman. Here are stories making rounds beyond the continent. We begin in America, where former President Donald Trump criticized President Joe Biden's policies on the U.S.-Mexico border during a major rally in Nevada, a crucial battleground state for the upcoming November election. Thousands of Trump supporters braved the heat at Sunset Park to cheer on the Republican presidential candidate. Now, this rally marks Trump's first significant public event since being found guilty last month of falsifying business records to conceal a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels before the 2016 presidential election.
Last week, Crooked Joe signed an executive order that is pro-invasion, pro-child trafficking, pro-woman trafficking, pro-human trafficking, and pro-drug dealers. It's a pro-drug dealer bill. It's weak, it's ineffective, it's bullshit what he signed. Millions of people will continue pouring in, and they're coming right through the border like they have never come through before. What he signed means nothing. In fact, it makes it easier. In my opinion, it opens the border still further. I've said this, and for those hotel workers and people that get tips, you're going to be very happy. Because when I get to office, we are going to not charge taxes on tips, people making tips.
Let's head to Europe, where Poles have been reacting to the results of the European election. The Civic Coalition, led by Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, won the European elections, defeating the populist Nationalist Law and Justice Party. In France, President Emmanuel Macron called snap legislative election on Sunday, citing far-right gains. Though moderate mainstream parties maintained an overall majority in the European Parliament, radical rights groups across the bloc won a series of high-profile victories. According to preliminary results, they won first place in France, Italy, and Austria, while finishing second in Germany and the Netherlands. More than 360 million Europeans in 27 nations were eligible to vote for the 720-seat assembly.
Wygrywają. Uważam, że środek byłby dużo lepszy dla Europy, bo każda skrajność kończy się często niepowodzeniami, niezależnie czy to będzie z prawej czy z lewej strony.
No nie jest to dobra droga, dlatego że skrajna prawica jest, no można powiedzieć, zagrożeniem, bo to są partie, które są proputinowskie, także.
Że Europa stała się trochę za bardzo miękka, za bardzo ugodowa. I może dojść do takiej sytuacji, że uchodźcy będą mieli większe prawa niż my, obywatele. I to mi się bardzo nie podoba. Nieraz...
A to, co teraz nam grozi, to jest zatracenie podmiotowości z każdych członków i ja to czuję już bardzo.
Left-wing parties across the Nordics gained ground in the EU election, going against the trend of right-wing advances across Europe. Centrist mainstream parties kept an overall majority in the European Parliament, but extreme right parties scored several high-profile wins in the bloc. They finished first in France, Italy, and Austria, and came second in Germany and the Netherlands, according to preliminary results. In Sweden, the anti-immigration Sweden Democrats, which props up Ulf Kristersson's centre-right government, made history by losing ground in an election for the first time since its founding in the late 1980s. The Sweden Democrats became the country's second largest party behind the Social Democrats in Sweden's 2022 general election.
Results as soon as they came out. I'm pleased with how things went in Sweden, less pleased maybe with the European vote as a whole. In Sweden and the Nordic countries, there was a tilt towards the left, and the rest of Europe went the other way, so it seems like there's a bit of a mismatch there.
Well, the whole family voted, at least those who are allowed to vote. We think it's important for democracy and be able to have an impact on the European Union. I think it went fairly as expected, reasonably happy, I'd say. Some surprising results, but
for instance?
I think in Sweden, for example, the Green Party did a very good result, which was actually quite...
German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, speaking in Oradour-sur-Glane in the Haute-Vienne department of France, expresses his shame at the fact that murderers have subsequently gone unpunished, that they have not atoned for the most serious crimes. His comments comes on the 80th anniversary of the massacre of 643 people in this village by Nazi troops, the majority of whom were women and children.
Je suis ému et reconnaissant de pouvoir aujourd'hui m'adresser ici à vous toutes et tous en tant qu'Allemands. Je tiens à exprimer au nom de l'Allemagne ma consternation et mon affliction face à ces crimes inconcevables, si cruels et inhumains, perpétrés ici par les Allemands, comme ce fut déjà le cas auparavant à Tulle. Et j'aimerais vous faire part du sentiment de honte qui m'habite quant au fait que des assassins soient ensuite restés impunis, qu'ils n'aient pas expié les crimes les plus graves.
Laurent Vinatier, a French citizen who works for a Swiss conflict mediation NGO, was arrested on Thursday and officially charged with breaching Russia's foreign agents law, charges which carry up to 5 years in jail. A Moscow court on June 7th ordered a French citizen, Vinatier, accused of gathering military information that could be used against Russia by foreign states to be investigated and be held in a pre-trial detention until August 5th. Vinatier, who was held in a metal cage at the back of the courtroom, accepted the accusations against him. French President Emmanuel Macron on Friday demanded the immediate release of Vinatier, saying the propaganda against him does not match reality.
В настоящее время доверители против разглашения какой-либо информации по данному делу, поэтому никаких комментариев не будет. Все, что...
The news continues after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, Israeli War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz has quit the emergency government in a sign of deepening divisions over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's post-conflict plans for Gaza. Now, speaking during a news conference in Tel Aviv on Sunday, where he announced his resignation, Gantz said the decision was made with a heavy heart. Benjamin Netanyahu responded with a post on X saying this is not the time to quit the campaign, this is the time to join forces. His centrist National Unity Party was in opposition until October 11, 2023, when after the start of the war following Hamas's 7th October attacks, he agreed to form an emergency government with Netanyahu. Immediately after the announcement, far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir demanded a place in the war cabinet.
בלב כבד, אך בלב שלם.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Cairo on Monday at the start of a regional tour to push for a Gaza ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Now, in closed-door talks, also attended by Egyptian intelligence chief Abbas Kamil, Sisi and Blinken discussed joint efforts to reach a ceasefire and hostage prisoner exchange deal. Speaking to reporters before leaving Cairo for his next stop in Jerusalem, Blinken said he had a very good exchange with Sisi, adding that regional leaders should press Hamas to agree to the truce proposal. The two had also been expected to discuss plans to reopen the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza, a key conduit for aid into the besieged territory, which has been closed for a month since Israeli troops seized its Palestinian side. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the leaders in the Middle East should press Hamas to agree to the U.S. proposal for a Gaza truce with Israel. Now, speaking with reporters in Cairo before boarding his plane to Tel Aviv, he said he believes strongly that the overwhelming majority of people, whether they're in Israel, the West Bank, in Gaza, actually want to believe in a future where Israelis and Palestinians would live in peace and security.
Since the president put the proposal forward, countries throughout the region and around the world, as well as international organizations, have all endorsed it. Israel has accepted it. And the only outlier in this moment, is Hamas. So my message to governments throughout the region, people throughout the region is, if you want a ceasefire, press Hamas to say yes. But I believe strongly, this is now my 8th trip to the region since October 7th, that the overwhelming majority of people, whether they're in Israel, the West Bank, in Gaza, throughout the region, around the world, actually want and believe in a future where Israelis and Palestinians alike can live in peace.
To discuss further on this, we have Ejike Okpa, his global affairs analyst. Hello, Ejike. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, to begin with, can you tell us, what potential impact the broader, this current conflict in Gaza would have on regional stability in the Middle East?
If it happens, it would be great because, as long as conflict has existed since Israel was created in 1948 and subsequently in the 60s, the Six-Day War, and, back and forth, it seems like nobody has an answer to what will be a lasting peace. So if what Blinken is doing is going to generate or lead to a permanent resolution or peaceful coexistence, the world welcomes it because the world is tired of the conflict between Palestinian and the Palestinians and Hamas and the Israel and all these other things. And it has caused tension. It's caused tension in the region. So a lot of life have been lost. A lot of human productivity has, stalled or stopped because, nobody does anything if a region is in a dire security situation, and that's what has been the case for more than how many years now, where all of us are exposed to this.
Okay. Now, in your professional opinion, how do you assess the effectiveness of U.S. diplomatic efforts in the region, particularly in regards to the Israel-Palestinian negotiations?
Well, I welcome what Blinken is doing, but again, you have to look at it. We have an election. The Palestinian-Israeli thing doesn't score very high among the voters, but a lot of people in the Palestinian community in America are leaning away from Biden. So, you can't exclude the fact that it's an election year. They're trying to pull a magic wand, just like they're doing with the issues in the southern border of the United States. The people are watching, but at the end of the day, we want peace. If that will happen before the election, would that change the mind of the world, the leaders, and those of us Americans who are willing to vote? Well, I don't know. But regardless, I don't want to see civilians killed. I don't want to see the destruction that happens in that region on a daily basis, the kidnapping, the hostage taking, and all these other things that go on. We're in the 21st century. We shouldn't be having this kind of war.
All right, Ejike, now in welcoming what Blinken is doing, what insights do you think Blinken gained from his meeting with President al-Sisi, and how do you think it would influence his approach to negotiations in Jerusalem?
Well, Egypt is a key player in the region because of border with, Palestinian, and then the crossing of or access to delivering goods and services, to support the civilians. So I don't know the extent of what they talked about. It hasn't been made public, except that, everybody comes out to say, hey, this is good. We're making progress. Progress is only, determined, or success is only determined after the two parties. Now, he said we need to, the world leaders need to reach out to Hamas and see what Hamas says. Until Hamas comes to the table and agree to what is proposed, it's still, futuristic, it's still ifs. So hopefully, Assis will now call Hamas people, with other leaders in the region and said, well, at least go listen and see what it is they're putting forward and see if you can agree to it. The two parties have to agree to it for the peace to exist.
Okay. Now, just as we wrap up, as we wind down, still in your professional opinion, how do you balance the complexities of regional politics with the need for clear and concise analysis, particularly when dealing with sensitive conflicts like Israel and Palestine?
Well, we live in a global village, and that village could be small, it could be, it could be large, just like what is going on between Russia and Ukraine, and you have this constant war between the Palestinians, and Israel. And then you have what is going on between South Sudan, and you have, Congo and Rwanda. The thing is, my thing is, if there's a conflict, we should look at it from a global perspective, not just when it is European, or Jewish, stuff. Every life is worth protecting. You don't hear so much about what's going on in Africa. It's always when it is Israelis, Palestinian things, then everybody's, it dominates the news or the media, and it is the Russian thing. So I'm hoping that, as we talk about this, the world as a global village, that we look at it honestly and objectively by saying, hey, we not condone any conflict, no matter how small, no matter how big it is. People are entitled to live a just life in their region, and not to where we just turn blind eye because it's an African thing or it's a black thing. We don't care. But if it's white, centric, and what they call the Judeo-Christian conflict, everybody should be paying attention. We should get away from that and be objective about conflicts in the world in order for it to get everybody to support resolutions, so that we can have a peaceful coexistence.
I will thank you so much for your professional insight to this issue, AGK. We appreciate you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And now to Asia. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has held the first meeting to unveil his new cabinet a day after taking oath of office for his third term. 11 of 71 government positions have gone to coalition allies following a stunning election setback that cost Modi's BJP its overall majority. Now, Modi's decade as Prime Minister has seen him build a reputation as an uncompromising advocate of India's dominant Hindu faith, which has alarmed minorities, especially the country's 200 million plus Muslim population. The Prime Minister convened his first cabinet meeting Monday, and preparations were authorized for assistance for 30 million new homes for poor families. A broken bridge hangs above a flooded river, and rescuers paddle rafts down submerged streets in the Hangian province after days of heavy rain partially submerged thousands of homes. According to state-run Voice of Vietnam, 3 people died after being swept away in flood water or buried in landslides. Images on state media showed water gushing down the steep roads of mountainous Hangian province, a popular spot for motorcycle tours, with vehicles overturned and abandoned in the flood water. Residents in Hangian city stood on rooftops waiting for rescue. Scientists have warned that extreme weather events globally are becoming more intense and frequent due to climate change. Now, a bit of sports before we wrap things up. 3 Valencia fans have been sentenced to 8 months in prison, the first conviction for racism at a football match in Spain, as a direct result of a complaint filed by La Liga. The racist chants were aimed at Real Madrid forward Vinicius Jr. during a La Liga game at Valencia's Mestalla Stadium on 21st May 2023. The fans were found guilty of a crime against moral integrity with aggravating circumstance of discrimination based on racist motives. An initial 12-month sentence was reduced by a third following an agreement reached at the preliminary investigation stage. Now, the fans were also banned from entering any football stadium in which La Liga and/or Spanish Football Federation matches are played for a period of 3 years, later reduced to 2. Czech Republic midfielder Michal Sedilek will miss Euro 2024 after injuring his shin in a cycling accident in Austria, the national team said on Monday. The 25-year-old 20-insured player suffered the injury during the Czech national team's training camp in the mountain resort of Schladming on Saturday. Sedilek fell while riding a bicycle down a hill in Schladming, where an alpine skiing World Cup event is held every year. Sedilek, Sparta Prague defender Ladislav Krejci and Hoffenheim defender David Jurasek had rented tricycles to descend from the Planey mountain. Sedilek hit a hole, crashed, and an ambulance was called at once, with the injury requiring 65 stitches. And that's all on Beyond the Continent. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.